We wanted to talk today about how to get your entire team involved in the growth content creation process. And this idea came up because at Nectify, we've always had sort of a principle that what we do for ourselves, we also do for our clients. And there's a good sort of synergy there that we attract our own clients through our website through good content, and that's also the service that we sell to our clients and provide on their behalf. And so we've always wanted to commit to creating good content consistently for our own Nectify website. The problem is, and I think that a lot of agencies face this at different points in their history, is that throughout 2021, for about 6 to 8 months, I think we only published one blog post. And we had sort of completely abandoned our own core principle of creating consistently good content to attract the right leads to our site. And going into Q4 of 2021, we set a concerted effort to create a certain amount of blog posts. And so after let's say 8 months of not creating more than one post, in the final 3 months of the year, we created the equivalent of 33 blog posts. And so we wanted to talk about sort of how we've revamped our content process. And really the key to that is having your entire team involved in the process. So we're going to sort of share some ideas about how you can get critical team members involved at different phases of the content planning process. Lance, at the sort of business goals phase, which is this is what we want to accomplish as a business, who's involved there and how does content fit in toward business goals potentially?
Yeah, so I remember you and I started talking about even back at the beginning of last year, or excuse me, almost a year and a half ago, trying to figure out how do we generate more business, right? So part of it all started with a business growth goal. We attempted several different things, but I think one of the things that kind of fell victim to those whole approaches was we were very, very busy. We're kind of getting close to capacity, and that's why content kind of fell off the radar. And that's like the cobbler has no shoes, or the cobbler's kids have no shoes because he's busy cobbling everybody else's shoes, right? So that's sort of where I think we got. And then as you and I started talking about why don't we, instead of continuing to experiment with all these other facets of how we grow our business, let's get back to that core concept of driving our own marketing with really high quality content. But how do we do that when we're still cobbling everybody else's shoes, if I can keep the analogy alive? So started with business goals, and we came back to, okay, what do we need to do to begin to measurably drive that again? And then I don't know how you came up with the numbers that you did. You remember what the story was behind that?
Yeah, so for 2022, we want to create 100 blog posts. And like I said, for 2021, we probably did somewhere in the 30s, with 33 coming in the fourth quarter and one coming sort of the rest of the year. Um, Based on how many leads we bring in, how many turn into opportunities, and then how many close as clients, doing 100 should basically get us to our baseline number of clients we want to close to reach our goals for growth. So
Cool.
the founder at a small company or whoever operates the business is involved in that. So you can communicate, this is how much we want to grow, and pass that to the strategist to say how much content's required to drive that growth or that portion of growth. At a bigger company, maybe that's the executive team or the board or whatever that sets the sort of business goal. So certainly those people are involved at that business goal setting phase, and then content can drive it.
Which I love that because that's literally how we approach all the work with our own clients is to say what are the business goals, and then what portion of those goals are going to be driven by content, and that's how we get involved. So we're applying the
Right.
fix to
Yep.
our own company.
So let's say then you're moving out of like the goal setting phase at the business level, and you're moving toward the strategy behind the content. So how are we going to pick the topics we create? Why are we going after those topics? What keywords are we going after? How are we going to attract our buyer persona? So now that we're into the content planning process itself, I wanted to ask you, Lance, why do you think it's important or beneficial to your business to have multiple people at your company involved in that process?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually probably my favorite benefit, if you will, of doing content marketing for our company and also for clients who get their folks involved. And that is when you've got multiple people in your company who are all invested in creating the kind of content that we create, which is really helpful, authoritative content that's not, we're not out there, harvesting what everybody else has to say and sort of regurgitating it on our site. That's not what we're doing at all. We're building out essentially our knowledge base of all of the topics that are relevant to the people that we want to work with. So essentially what you're getting into is almost like a virtuous cycle of everyone on our team is learning more, is communicating by teaching somebody else. We break it out, and you've done a great job of setting this up, but we have subject matter experts on certain topics within the company. They get interviewed by other people within the company. And so we're essentially cross-pollinating the information that we know, the passions that we have about different topics. And then I think it's also really, really helpful just to remind everyone on our team what we do, right? Like in the sense of this is the experience that our clients are getting when they work with us. And so it kind of gives us fresh eyes into the main service that we provide in the marketplace.
Yeah, I'd just add that it's important to have multiple people involved in your content process because if you have one writer on your team, that person's a good writer but may lack the knowledge of the subject. Or you could have someone with knowledge on the subject who lacks the writing skills. So if you only have one person involved on either side, you're going to be missing a key skill there. The second way to put that is that part of content marketing that is so powerful is the ability to pull all of the knowledge at your company out onto your website or onto the internet and use it as a tool to attract people. So if you have somebody sitting there who's been in the
Yeah.
industry for 20 years and knows so much about what to do and has great advice, but you're not using them, you're limiting the amount of knowledge you can share and therefore the amount of people you can attract. So it's certainly important to get everybody involved to pull out that knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. Because what happens a lot of times is you have experts within your company, and because they're experts, they're actually kind of working with fewer and fewer people, right? Because they typically are maybe moving up in the hierarchy of the company or whatever, but you have access to them less. Getting this concept where you're taking what people know and having maybe somebody else write what they know, it kind of gets that back out. So you're kind of getting the most out of all that knowledge and experience.
So sticking with the strategy phase, how to get people involved at that phase, it should be one person who's the strategist with content planning skills and knowledge, SEO ability, right? So you should designate one person responsible for that, whether it's an actual SEO strategist or content strategist or somebody on the team leading that role. We have a blog ideas tab, and you can do this wherever you want on some idea board or collaboration tool you have. Someplace people know to go whenever they have an idea for a potential blog, and everyone at the company can contribute to that. And that's one of the starting points for the strategist to look at. So they're getting input from everyone, and then they're analyzing the opportunities and planning them.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, because I like how you guys have set this up here, because what I think happens for a lot of companies, if they decide they're going to write content in the manner that we're talking about, you get everybody involved. Essentially, you go from we want to write content, and then we all go to the whiteboard and we throw a
Yep.
bunch of ideas up, and then we assign them out. The
Right.
huge step that they're missing is sending it through a strategist to say,
Yep.
is this something that our ideal persona cares about? Are they looking for it?
Right.
otherwise what you're doing is you're doing a lot of great writing, and that's great, but you're missing a huge value of that content and actually driving business.
And then the other part there of the strategy process where you can get people involved is you have that one strategist planning everything, right? So what's the biggest opportunity, not pursuing things that people aren't looking for. Then you can have somebody else at your company review it. And they can review it with a certain lens, like this is useful to our customer or not. So that might be a salesperson or someone really with really good knowledge of what your customers are interested in. And they can say, I'm glad that's a good opportunity from an SEO standpoint, but I don't think we should pursue it because it wouldn't attract the right people. Or somebody saying, I don't think this is the direction we want our business to go, right? We're not selling into those industries, or we'll never sell a product like that. We're going to throw out the idea. So you have somebody, all the ideas come in from everybody. One strategist with SEO skills and content planning skills plans it, and then somebody else with knowledge of the business and the customer reviews it, and you've got the right team sort of in place there.
And I think also just obviously we're a small business, so this doesn't apply to us necessarily, but I think it's really important, especially if you're in a bigger company, to get people involved who are in the decision-making hierarchy of the company as well, so that there is some motivation behind this process. And it's not just, basically a marketing manager goes out and hounds a bunch of people to write content. It's an effort that's led from the leaders of the
Yep.
company, and including themselves in that process.
So let's move on to the actual content creation process. So now you have a plan of articles, videos, white papers, whatever it is you're going to create. You actually have to create those and write them or record them. What's a good way to get people involved at the content creation phase?
So I think the biggest challenge that we faced back when we were trickling out content is that everybody intends to write content. I mean, I think in our team, I think even at that phase, we all knew like, yeah, we should be doing our own content. And we even had this little thing where we were our own client. We were on the board that we manage all of our
Yep.
projects. The problem comes in when there is a conflict of time between I'm going to write something for our company or I'm going to write something for one of our clients. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to everyone because if you're not a content company, you may not have that exact same thing. But the way I describe it to people who are trying to implement something like this is I say, just get your team to all sit down in the same room and just ask the question, who has extra time? And no one's going to raise their hand. And it's not because we're trying to avoid work, it's that we are all maxing out the time that we have. If that's the case, then something that's lower priority or somehow perceived to be lower priority is always going to slip off the radar. So one of the things that I love what you started back up for us is essentially a way to sort of block out time on our calendar as a team to say during this period of time, we're going to focus on creating content. Maybe you want to tell everybody what that.
We're in that block of time right now recording this video, and we call it a NECTA day, which is no other meetings or client work is done during this block of time. It happens once per month, and it's a big block. I think 5 hours, enough to write an article.
And I'll point out too, on this call right now, we have Meredith on here, who is like the producer of our video. She's chatting to us if she wants to ask us something or tell us something.
Yep.
So there's three of us involved in this one piece of creation, our content creation, that then will also become the article that you're reading
Yep.
if you continue down the page.
And then there are 4 or 5 other Nectify people writing articles on their own right now. So this is a block of time that's on the calendar. Everyone the day before chooses the topic on the calendar that they want to write about. And we all join and prioritize the Nectify blog today over everything else. So the prioritization of time just for the day. So that's one way that we produce maybe 6 or 7 pieces of content, at least the drafts, within one day. So that's one way you could do it, is have everybody join for a single day, and there's accountability. at the end, we come back on and screen share the articles we've written. Um, so the other piece of that content creation process is what we call subject matter expert interviews. So Lance, what's a good way to get people involved, or how do we get people involved in those interviews, and why?
Yeah, so here, the way I would describe it is those people we were talking about a minute ago that have so much knowledge in your company, to tell them, hey, sit down and write 1,000 words on this topic. For the vast majority of people, that feels like very painful, frustrating, reminds you like you're back in high school writing a research paper of some sort, right? It brings back a lot of painful memories for everybody. But for the most part, if you could ever sit down across a dining room table, or go to Starbucks and talk to those people about a topic, they could wax eloquent for a very, very long time. So essentially what you do is say, let's pair up somebody who's good at writing and have them go talk to somebody who knows about this topic. In our company, I don't necessarily know that much about any topic, but I love to talk as compared to write. So Henry knows, you know, that if you bring me in here, we can talk, and then we can capture whatever little thing I might have to say about a topic, and we can make some content out of it. Whereas if you were to say, Lance, I need you to write 1,200 words on how we're going to do such and such, you would be chasing me down for quite a while to try to get me to actually wrap that up. So the idea of involving people who can communicate and talk, or even maybe record their thoughts or whatever, and then have somebody who's good at writing actually turn that into something worthwhile. That's the sort of the core of not just how we do this process, but also it's the core of how we deliver what we do
Yep.
for all of our clients.
So that structure of how you're getting the team involved in the content creation phase, ideally there you have actual writers, or you have an agency with good writers, right? Somebody with the skill of writing, people at your company who do other roles but are good at writing, they're all writing. And then layered on top of that is the subject matter experts at your company, everyone with knowledge but without the writing ability, time, whatever. And they are being interviewed by the content creators or writers so that their ideas can get out there even though they don't necessarily have the skill of writing. You're blocking off time with something like what we call the neck day, where once a month you're forcing this all to happen because otherwise it can fall in priority. And therefore you're having everyone with knowledge and with writing skills contributing to the content as you create. Um, is there anything else at the content creation phase that you can think of, Lance, about how team members are involved?
I like how we have our kickoff call right before we all go do our stuff. So we started that, we did that like an hour ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I like about that is essentially we're making sure there is no vagueness of what you're supposed to do, because that's the other killer of productivity, or the other killer of like getting some content created, is when you go, you finally budgeted some time to work on it, right? You step into it and you go, I'm not exactly sure how this, what's the outcome here, or what we're really supposed to do. Who am I supposed to talk to? Are they available? So putting it all in that little meeting where we just kind of quickly answer any kind of concerns, figure out who's going to do what. To me, that's a really, really effective part of how we do this neck today.
Yep.
I think, I don't know if maybe we're going to cover this in another section, but there's also this how you guys essentially it goes from here into our project management board, and then that process is like
Mm-hmm.
really, really important, because what happens like in so many meetings is everybody takes on assignments, right? Everybody says, yeah, that's on my to-do list. But if you don't have a way to be accountable or a way to keep things moving, it all just sort of falls apart. Can you describe sort of how we do that part of the
Yeah,
process?
it's a good call. That's where I was going to go next. Is so you've got all these great pieces drafted, and you still have a few more phases next. So in our project management board, it will go to editor review, which is probably the most important thing. So much like The topic ideas filter through the strategist who has the skill of understanding the opportunity. On the inverse side is the actual drafts go through the editor who has the skill of editing and making
Mhm.
it ready for your website. So that should not just be the marketing manager, the founder. It needs to be an editor, and it's super important. So that filters through first. Then it gets reviewed by what we call the client, which would be the founder at a small company, the marketing manager at a bigger company. Is it is this piece hitting what we need to attract the right people? So they get approval after the editor sort of gets approval. And then finally, it needs to go to one person who's responsible for actually posting it to your website. We call that role a technologist. And so there's, rather than just saying anyone jumps in, you actually have one person responsible for doing that so that it actually gets done and it gets done on time. So that board then has different columns and buckets to make sure you push it from draft to your website. At that point, you have just about pulled out all the knowledge across your business in a given month. You've utilized all the writing capacity and skill you have. You've utilized the editor, right, in a way that makes it ready and readable. Um, you've used the strategist to to prioritize opportunity of each content topic, and now you've sort of got your entire team working toward growing your visits, leads, and then clients. Is there anything else you think we missed there, Lance? Um, broad topics or ideas you'd want to cover?
Yeah, I mean, I think in our process for ourselves and also for our clients, we have writers. So in Nectify, we have sort of our core team. Um,
Hmm.
I think 8 or 9 of us. I always get my numbers messed up, but there's kind of this core, and then we have some writers that work with us that we've like hand selected out of um, from big numbers. We've hand selected a handful that are amazing who help us with this stuff, and this is what we could recommend to other companies as well. And it's part of what we do for other companies is we come in, and even though we're on the outside, by using the process and the skills that we bring, which is strategy, writing, editing, technology, we
Yep.
can actually get the most from a company if they're trying to get all their team involved in creating that content. So I know this is kind of, it's a little bit weird because we're talking about doing this process ourselves, and we have the skill to do all of this process ourselves because it's what we do. So if you're an agency who does this, then you've already got the pieces in place. If you're not, you may need to bring in some outside help to make the process really work well. Otherwise, it goes from everybody's excited about it, big idea, to we tried this once, too many pieces and it fell apart. So sometimes it's a great idea to involve people from outside.
Yep. So I think to sort of summarize then, if you're at the phase where you have only a handful of people contributing, there are different roles you can put people into based on their skills and expertise. So you can slide the knowledgeable people into SME roles or subject matter expert roles. You can have your writers only be in roles. You can have an editor. You can have one strategist with that skill rather than multiple contributing ideas. And there's a way to structure it and include everyone to sort of maximize your content and the quality of your content, really.
I like that a lot because I think some people approach this as everybody needs to sit down and write something. And maybe if you're just a really uniquely talented bunch of people, that's no big deal.
Hmm.
Otherwise, doing it by your specialty and what you're good at and what you enjoy actually can make this a positive experience for everybody involved because we all feel like we're being successful rather than being forced to do something that feels like it's somebody else's job, frankly, which is, we didn't really cover that too much. And that's sort of the air cover from leadership in your company to say, um, marketing is everyone's job, not just the
Yep.
marketing department.
Yep.
And that's probably a business discussion.
Yep.
Because I think what happens in some companies is you say, well, why isn't the marketing team handling all of this? Because that's what they get paid to do, and it's
Right.
my job to go sell things, or it's my job to, do the books, or it's my job to direct what we're doing over here in, expansion. Well, it's everybody's job to grow the business, and that at its core, that's marketing.
We'll have this written out step by step as well. And you can see that if you're in the blog post now, you can see that below. So you can help structure your own process that way. And we hope you found this discussion useful, and pushes you on your way to get your whole team involved in the content creation process.